Okay, the events table has a low rolls allow you to get additional events. There's also a no event, but the double events is a 15% chance, which is quite likely. I ended up with 3 events because of it. See if I can remember. One of them is quite clear. We got a tempest here, which automatically sinks both these boats, and this poor little elf. Great. That's going to make it difficult to move through these two. There's a 50% chance if you enter them, you'll immediately sink. The second event was a good harvest. So a number of areas had two extra points. I think it's 50-50 on that, because it doesn't look like I gave everything that. Yeah, 50% chance that any given area goes up by 2 prosperity points. Notably, it didn't happen to Eastie, the place that most needed it. And the final one was a plague. Any place under 15 prosperity, I mean it's 15 or under, has a 50% chance of having a plague. It loses 4 immediate prosperity, and all units in it, other than undead and Valkyrie and stuff like that. Well, it hit Krog, which wiped that out, but that's the only place it hit. Most of the areas are still pretty rich. I'm a conservative type of person who doesn't really believe in sort of risking the future on that all-out grab, and it doesn't really apply in this game. You know, it's now and then you can overtax an area and get a bonus out of it, but for the most part, you really do want to live within your means here, because you'll just spiral down real fast. There's a couple of cases where maybe somebody who's losing might need to, we saw Orcam do it, where you just need to pull in more and more resources in the hopes that you can make it through. But it doesn't work as a long-term strategy at all. You have to keep your prosperity up, even during the wars. Well, the game is all about war. It would be kind of cool if it wasn't all about war, but it is. So I've got the dragon bidding to go. It's pretty easy, actually. The elf saw the trouble that the necromancer went through on his last turn, ripping stuff up. He figures, I can get it for 10. And indeed he does. He gets it in Crag. Terribly valuable, hard to tell. That's not really in reach of most of the necromancer units anyway. It's possible. I mean, that could get there. If I have any flying units, kind of a waste of money. But where else am I going to put it over here? This isn't even reachable except through here, and I'm probably going to freeze that. So there you have it. All right. Wonder of a helicopter. Almost as good as motorcycles, huh? Except the helicopter thunders by over my roof every morning at like 7 in the morning, I think, for whatever reason, which is fine, but kind of annoying if I'm on the phone or something. So big build-up. All the Pegasi back on the map except for one. Built a giant. Not going for 2 just because even the elf's finances are beginning to get strapped. You can see he's hitting towards the bottom minus that 500, that big chunk of change that he has. He knows he's going to have to dig into it fairly soon, but you know, filtering more troops up doesn't seem like a tremendous advantage right now. But we see Kennard filling up with goblins, and they built up fortifications and a camp there. The camp so that they can keep a garrison in place more than anything else. I don't really need to build the excess troops necessarily. Freezings on the same 2 territories as before, but that means there's a significant little force here which could slam into this first thing off. Of course, there's no leader there, which is not good. We can pull the necromancer. The necromancer should be somewhere because he's able to build troops now. Yeah. Oh, we've got these extra goblins there as well, so that shouldn't be as bad as I thought it would be. I don't think I've paid for these suckers. I'm going to dispose of them. So I don't think I've been funding them. I've been funding the troops, but not... Those boats have just kind of been below my radar. So here's the problem, though. Svardesen's about to fall. Now I've got a bunch of little halflings or whatever ready to go march up into there and try to take care of that. But God knows, you know, I mean, I should have been moving that earlier. As it is, Lersoyan is nearly ready to fall. You know, I mean, there's not a lot there to defend it. I've got 3 Pegasi there now. I've got these Pegasi here, which can maybe fly up and defend this. This isn't really at risk right now. Neither is this. It's just a matter of trying to cover everything while I'm trying to win the war on this front, but that's not looking very likely because the pile's getting bigger and these troops are slow to move up. And then there's the problem. There's boats all over the place. Can I dare, you know, build a navy to challenge them? Do I have the kind of money to throw into that? Otherwise, I'm throwing garrison troops back in all my coastal cities because they can fall too easily. Painful. And the necromancer pushes in, destroying the little elvish force or whatever that was in the front there. There was a Pegasus in there, a good leader. No real losses, took some goblin losses which turned into undead because I have undead again. I might have to suck some down out of, you know, one of these stacks that's frozen. No big harm to that. Make the choices harder. Also grabbed Svardisen, which I'm not going to be able to tax from because I had this leader here. I think I've been cheating and taxing from here while he was wandering around up there. Oh well. Yes, I'm short on cash. That's a bad thing, but might as well cheat for the necromancer. Can't. It can only speed things up, right? I don't know. Anyway, on to the elf turn. Well, I probably lost track of this thing, but the elves didn't do a whole hell of a lot. Gathered their forces here. Preparation for an expedition in there. If that doesn't work, nothing will. I've overgunned in my expedition up here. This isn't able to hold out. This wouldn't be able to hold out. If it weren't for my magic, I couldn't prevent anything. There was an attack over here. I forgot about this one. I noticed it after I closed out where the necromancer hit there. The necromancer actually came out with a few bucks over this turn. He's got to be really careful though. He's about at his limit of what he can have on the board, just in terms of being able to afford it. Either that or he can crank up his taxation, but that might be bad in the long run because he is winning. And see, the elf has a big pile of money because he changed in his little gold drop there. So he's running low even quicker, and the amount, well, he's paying 154. The necromancer is paying 222. You know, those armies aren't that different a size when you consider 2 big forces being frozen each turn. I'd say it's about equal, but this big force is going to have a hard time making it there. And then remember the necromancer's ability. Big battles are his bonus because he just so many units die in it that he gets a bunch of off the ultimate necromancy, a bunch of undead. The littler battles, the winner only has 1 piece, which is kind of what happened here. He had 3 to begin with, but eventually gets down to 1, and the necromancer can't really grow. It's just, okay, well, when are you going to disintegrate? When's your army going to fail completely? Okay, I'm going to open up with the simple part rather than the random event because the elf picks up the dragon again, 25 bucks this time. This looks like the important location. Now, the necromancer would have liked the dragon, but he didn't have anywhere near that kind of money. He actually held off a bid just because he knows he's short on cash and would watch where the elf places it. Chances are the elf will place it here, which maybe isn't going to be enough. I've got 2 big stacks within range of that. Of course, if this one's frozen, comes down to just this, but that's still a pretty decent sized stack. And freezing this means, well, where's your other freezing going to be? Freezing this affects the elf himself. Alright, what is the event? This is a painful one. Sif's Festival. A fertility goddess, Thor's wife. The players have to pay 10 gold per area after the tax phase, or those areas are each going to lose 3 prosperity. This is all or nothing. You can't choose not to pay. Sif will give 3 prosperity to each area if you pay for it. I don't think either player can afford this, to tell you the truth, but we'll see after the tax phase. But my guess is everybody's going to take a hit on this. And well, yeah, they didn't pay. We wander into the military phase, and we've frozen the 2 same provinces that we've been freezing. We got $3 left. We can build some ents here if we want to, or up here when we attack Svartsen, which we're planning on doing. These armies are going to start moving toward Kenord. That's going to be a heavy cost. Got a little bit of a worry with the boat here. This boat's not too big an issue. But other than that, it comes down to this fight, which I think the Necromancer is going to win. Which just looks like slowly everything's going to fall over here. I'm not sure where this guy's going to land. I got to be careful with him. He could support an attack down here in Crag. There's quite a force there. I've got to kind of leave it there. I can't, start risking attacks over on Solorian or the like. I don't think. Not sure what I can do otherwise, though. It feels like I'm in kind of this fallow period with the elf, and then it's not going to get better. I mean, if I fight this off, if I can beat off the Necromancer there, that looks good, but otherwise... Ugh. So the elf launched an attack against Svartsen, was defeated here, and then you can see those giants came back down unharmed and took Moari. That sounds pretty bad. There was also an assault here at Larosyan, but that destroyed the Necromancer's stack. Even with his ultimate necromancy, he had a big stack of 9 units at one point, but then they didn't lose 9 undead after the first round. But the elves kept steady at 3 units from that point on, essentially. Big old stack of Elf King units heading to Kenard. That's really the game as far as they're concerned. Because I've knocked out this big stack. There's still power here, though, and I've got kind of this threat of a conjunction of forces here and more forces coming down. It's really draining the Elven player his ability to do anything at this point. He also lost, and this was the big thing, a sneak attack into Pomerania. There were 3 cav here. This is pretty much the same kind of attack as happened before. But Pomerania has fallen, and that means this whole back area is kind of threatened now. With more forces coming in here, it's really hard to tell what needs to be defended, what doesn't. Is Crag in danger? Is this side in danger? Can I come up from behind here and cut things off there? Who knows? All in all, it's pretty ugly. Probably want to sell off some of these goods, some of the assets here, just because those are kind of tenuous areas. They've produced wealth for the Necromancer in the long run, but it would be better off to rip some of them up. Things like the Merchants Guild. I want the ability to build troops in both cases. Of interesting factors. First of all, the elves lost enough magic. They're down to only 23 points in magic on this next turn, unless something changes. Remember, there's some events that tinker with that. That means they don't get to freeze 2 stacks. It's their own screw up. They had places they could build a temple like Eastie, which were fairly safe, or down here. But essentially they lost a lot, 2 areas, and that cost them hard, and they didn't gain anything. They were hoping maybe to get Svartsen or something. Also, due to losses and this huge stack being out altogether on an invasion, the elves actually are paying more in maintenance right now than the necromancer is. And it's kind of deceptive, though. Their army is still not as big, but the necromancer army is shrinking greatly. And we'll push this forward. And that probably means Ringeriken is going to fall. I think we're kind of seeing the denouement to this whole. Okay, the event this time is a blizzard, which just means it costs 2 extra movement points to cross borders to these 3 areas. It may mean I don't really want to build in those areas with the necromancer. I've probably got enough to win the game with what I've got elsewhere. Kind of screwed up. Forgot to take my undead armies here and here. They weren't present though yet. I didn't have them until after this fight, basically. I would have had to drain more of my armies from here. That's the only place I think I've got undead armies left. So it's not really something I can repair very easily. The dragon went over here. Basically, I'm not sure why the elf didn't buy it. He should be afraid because a couple giants here. Not much in the way of anything else. There'll be an undead there perhaps that could attack here. And a couple of giants here. So there's multiple different routes to get into Larasayane. But he's getting worried because his cash reserves are really depleting. Not to the level the necromancer has. But, after having 500, it's tough to see your pool go down that low. Okay, well, the necromancer moved first. He took Larsayan and also pushed out a Pomern to destroy a unit here, and took Ringeriken or whatever. That's almost the entire continent, everything except Crag over in, well, almost the entire peninsula. For the elves, they're abandoning Crag. They built a air unit of Pegasi coming from there and there to take Pomern. I had landed some additional necromancer units there. Those were wiped out. So now Pomern is actually back in elvish hands. But it's a wreck. I mean, it's been ruined. If I can find it, there it is. It's at 2, which is horrible. All right. Abandoning Crag. Well, Crag's not in bad shape. It's also not in great shape. What I'm looking at doing is maybe I'm going to be taxing it once more probably, and then selling off the resources and getting out of there. That means I'm left with trying to defend this. And, in terms of total points of the armies, 194 I spent on the necromancer, but of course the necromancer has a lot of undead, but not that many. A lot of them are there. Uh-oh. You know what I did? I failed at this again, and I'm taking them this time because there's no reason I wouldn't have taken some undead. But now the necromancer's, he doesn't have a whole hoard of money, but he's got a decent increase. He can start building things like merchant centers, etc., if he's not really threatened up here, and start cranking the money up. I just don't see an answer. This fight is not going to go for the elf. It's, it's what I was kind of hoping on, but it just does not look plausible. I'll wait until tomorrow morning because it's getting kind of late tonight, and see if I can finish it up then by playing another turn. I don't want to give up on it if there is any chance, but I don't think there is. I really don't. The necromancer has a force here threatening this. I'm going to have to build these guys up. You can see the elf's money. He's down below 200. at about the same level the necromancer is. He no longer has that income. And this kind of devastation tactics, it's pretty damn effective. It rips a territory completely out of the elf's hands. And there's not much he can do about it. He can't do the equivalent raiding type situation. He doesn't have the cash to invest in it. This is really working to strangle whatever economic advantage he has. And now, with only one freeze available, and actually we're down 4 more from here. With only one freeze available of units, what am I going to freeze? I can't freeze that because I'm there. I won't be able to move out. I can freeze this big stack and keep hitting it. But with boats, these guys can come down and start taking this shit. And I'm just going to be left with nothing. I mean, really, nothing. And worst comes to worst, even if I took this, the necromancer could conceivably, although I'm not sure how desirable this is, do the Russian retreat and destroy everything behind him. And then the elf will have nothing viable to conquer. He can take this stuff and get a little bit of advantage off of it and try to build it up, but he doesn't have the resources if he's losing his good territories at the same time that he's gaining wrecked territories. And if he wrecks stuff, well, that's no really big deal. There's still this huge economic engine in Scandinavia itself. Okay, so after going through all the builds, the random event was Good Harvest, which just increases some prosperity levels at random. But after going through everything in the economic side of the game, the elves built up a bunch more temples, hoping to get their magic up where they can freeze 2 things. The necromancer started building merchants guilds, windmills and such, so that he can start improving his economy, because this still looks like it's going to be kind of drawn out. I think I'm going to call it very shortly. The elf has 12 points. He has a single shot that he's going to fire off. Now a fairly large navy was being built here at Laralcearan, whatever. That has to be stopped. That's going to be the invasion of Jylland. The problem is, had the necromancer noticed, he could have built another navy here and ensured that he could get one of those forces onto the continent. But as it stands, he didn't really think that the elf would be freezing that. The elf plundered and removed everything from Krog. And, well, as far as I'm concerned, the elf's survival comes down, whether or not this game continues, comes down to what the elf's going to trigger a grand fight there. If he can destroy that army, have a fair-sized force that he can conquer other territories from, this does still remain somewhat interesting, though not terribly. I mean, look at what we're looking at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 territories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14. So the elf has very limited options. First of all, I'm going for this. This is going to decide whether or not I keep going, and I think chances are I'm going to lose that. But beyond that, although I do have some forest there, that gives me an extra unit. No, I mean, 2 big stacks grinding into each other like that, that's got to go for the necromancer. But if I can't get rid of that big stack, I can't advance into Finland area. There's just no way to hold out. There's too much up here for me to handle, although I can freeze 2 areas next turn. Over here, this guy's a problem for me. I've got new troops showing up here and here. I shifted some stuff in, brought the evacuation from Krog into place, but I can't attack it. I wasn't in range with the right stuff to hit it. I guess I could send these Pegasi and these into it, but then I'll be losing my good units and starting to hand those over to the Necromancer to strip away from me. Better to let this thing kind of kick around, try to attack something maybe, I don't know. He could do a lot of damage if he captures an area. Alright, on to this. Just in counting the forces there, certain issues arose. For one thing, measure the two stacks. Well, it looks like the elf has extra pieces, but when you take away the heroes, actually the Necromancer has an extra piece when I measure the stacks against each other. That means all the Necromancer's goblins are at strength 4, and I think there's like 1 or 2 goblins over. Well, there's certainly at least 1, but there's a small amount of goblins over on the elf stack. Those go down to their normal 3 strength. Then there was a big pile of orcs. 7 orcs, 35 strength points, but I can double that by throwing money in, so another 35 was put in, and they become good units. We end up with 170 to 161. That's in favor of the evil player, but that's before we add in the territory. The territory's Canard at a strength of 19. Canard is an evil area with an evil defender against good. That gives me 2. 5. Fortified, but they're only goblins, so that's 15 more strength points. Alright. Now leadership, we got a +3 leader here, that gives me +8. Both sides have fear on their side, so that's only +6. And a +4 leader here, which goes down to +2. So +6 and +2, and this is +6 gives me a 14 at 161. We're at the top of the chart here. There's a limit to what leadership can do with large forces, I guess. And what was the other one? +8 plus... Oh, I screwed up there. Okay, this is the +2, so this should only be 10. This should be 60 for the good guys. And the bad guys are at +6 all the way over here. They get 105. That means the elf lost. As far as I'm concerned, game is over. I could start, recording the losses to that stack, etc. But that means there's another big army coming down. I can't face it. I don't have enough troops to face what the Necromancer has here. He's going to strip away Eastay, maybe these right away in the first blows, and then what? I just don't have the power to hold out anymore with the elf. So I'm going to call this. It's kind of, sometimes it's interesting to watch something degrade, but I've stretched this game well beyond what it's supposed to play. One real note that can kind of come up from this is, geez, you can kind of see why they, put a short ending on it and didn't put it to the kind of final ending that we saw. I mean, it tripled the length of the game easily. Maybe more than that. It also, though, took away the kind of quick stab for victory. Some people don't like when you can make a quick move and grab victory, maybe with a surprise element in it. There's something very nice to playing out to the bitter end, or at least to where it's obvious, the circumstances. Because it was not at all clear for quite a while after the Necromancer won the original game whether or not he would be able to carry out as he did. Had the powers been reversed, I think, if it had been the elf who had won the original, I think he would have still gotten beaten. The Necromancer power is very, very good in this long-term game, and that may be another reason why they pushed it aside. You kind of have to stomp the Necromancer out of the running to have any shot at winning the long-term game, probably, because he just has such a potent advantage. I certainly made some mistakes. How much effect anyone had, whether any were, real game changers, I'm not so sure. But it's an easy game to make a lot of mistakes for. All right, I'm going to load this up, pack it up, and then come back with a review. both of the base game mainly, but also more about what this kind of sparks in me, maybe. I don't know. Because this is the kind of game I want to change. I want to add more to.